across the Mongolian steppes, carrying with it the scent of blood and smoke. Under the endless blue sky, a lone rider paused on a hill, his eyes cold and unblinking as he gazed at the ruins of a once great city. Below him, thousands of bodies lay motionless, the air thick with ash and the cries of ravens. That rider was Temujin, better known to the world as Genghis Khan, the man who would conquer more land than any ruler in history and leave behind a trail of death that claimed over 40 million souls. His empire would stretch from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe, and his shadow would fall across centuries. But behind this vast dominion was not just ambition, it was vengeance, born in blood, betrayal, and endless hunger for power. Temujin's story began not with glory, but with abandonment. When he was a boy, his father, the leader of a small Mongol tribe, was poisoned by a rival clan. His family, his mother and siblings, were cast out into the wilderness, left to starve. From that moment, the boy who would become Genghis Khan learned that mercy was weakness and survival required ruthlessness. He hunted for roots, fought for scraps, and watched his own brother die by his hand in a fight over food. Those early years shaped a man who trusted no one and forgave nothing. As he grew, Temujin forged alliances through fear and loyalty alike. He united fractured tribes under a single vision, the rise of the Mongols as the masters of the world. His charisma was unmatched, his leadership brutal yet magnetic. Every warrior swore an oath of blood to him, believing that under his command they were unstoppable. And they were. His army was a storm of hooves and steel, swift, disciplined, and merciless. When the Mongols rode into battle, they did not fight like any army before them. They moved like ghosts, striking where least expected, disappearing before the enemy could react. They used speed, deception, and terror as weapons more powerful than swords. Villages that resisted were annihilated, their inhabitants slaughtered to the last soul. Cities that surrendered often found themselves spared, temporarily, only to be destroyed later as examples to others. The Khan's strategy was psychological as much as physical. Make the enemy fear him more than death itself. The first to feel his wrath were the rival Mongol tribes who refused to join him. He crushed them without hesitation, boiling enemy leaders alive and displaying their heads on stakes. Once Mongolia was united under his iron rule, his gaze turned outward to the rich and powerful empires beyond the steppes. His first great target was the Xia and Jin dynasties of northern China. The Jin dynasty, arrogant and complacent, underestimated the Mongols. They saw them as mere barbarians, nomads unworthy of attention. That mistake would cost them everything. Genghis Khan unleashed a campaign of destruction that would devastate the region. His men breached the Great Wall, burned cities to the ground, and massacred millions. He believed that terror was the surest path to obedience. When the city of Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, refused to surrender, he surrounded it for months. When his armies finally broke through, they killed nearly everyone, men, women, children. The streets ran red with blood and the Mongols left only ashes behind. But even as he destroyed, Genghis Khan built. He created a new order from chaos. His empire operated with precision. Messengers on horseback carried commands across vast distances with remarkable speed. His laws, known as the Yasa, bound the Mongols under strict discipline. Stealing a horse or lying in council could mean death, but loyalty was rewarded. Trade routes reopened, knowledge spread, and for a time, the Silk Road thrived under Mongol protection. Yet the price of that peace was unimaginable suffering. When Genghis turned his fury westward, his armies rolled over Central Asia like a plague. The Khwarezmian Empire, a proud and thriving civilization stretching from Persia to the Caspian Sea, made the fatal mistake of insulting the Khan. Its ruler, Shah Muhammad II, killed a Mongol trade envoy and burned others alive. Genghis saw it not just as betrayal but as blasphemy. His vengeance was total. He sent his generals across the mountains, cutting through cities like a blade through flesh. In 1219, the city of Otrar, where his envoys were murdered, was obliterated. Every man capable of holding a weapon was executed. Women and children were enslaved or slaughtered. When the Mongols reached Bukhara, they stormed its defenses in days. Genghis rode into the city's grand mosque and addressed the trembling survivors. "If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." By the time he was done, entire civilizations had vanished. The once bustling cities of Nishapur, Urgench, and Samarkand were reduced to ruins. Estimates say that nearly a quarter of the world's population perished in his conquests. Yet in the Khan's mind, he was not a destroyer. He was destiny incarnate, chosen by the eternal sky to unite the world under one rule. Still, behind the unstoppable conquests lay a man haunted by his past. As he aged, the fire in him dimmed only slightly. He dreamed of order, not chaos, but his methods remained soaked in blood. His sons began to quarrel, his generals grew ambitious, and rebellion simmered in conquered lands. Genghis Khan's empire was the largest the world had ever seen, but it was held together by fear, and fear, like all things, fades. As Genghis Khan's armies thundered west, their legend spread ahead of them. To the people of Europe and the Middle East, they were not men, but demons, creatures from the edge of the world who devoured nations whole. The Mongols did not conquer cities. They erased them. They left behind deserts where once stood kingdoms and rivers clogged with corpses. To face them was to face death itself, yet their brutality was not blind chaos. Every act of slaughter had purpose. The Khan's generals were mathematicians of death. They calculated how much terror would force surrender and how much bloodshed was needed to ensure no rebellion ever rose again. When the Mongols besieged Merv, one of the greatest cities of Persia, they offered peace if the city opened its gates. The people obeyed, hoping for mercy. Instead, Genghis ordered the extermination of its entire population. Some accounts claim over 1 million people were killed in a single week. Cities that resisted faced worse. Mongol catapults hurled flaming corpses into fortresses to spread disease and panic. They built pyramids of skulls as monuments to their victories. Survivors were used as human shields or executed en masse. This was psychological warfare on a scale the world had never known, and it worked. Entire regions surrendered without a fight, preferring humiliation to annihilation. Despite the oceans of blood, the Khan's genius lay not only in war, but in governance. Once a city submitted, it often found itself integrated into the empire's vast network. The Mongols protected merchants, tolerated religions, and built systems of taxation and communication that rivaled Rome. They employed scholars, engineers, and doctors from every corner of their dominion. The empire became a strange paradox, brutal in conquest, yet efficient and surprisingly progressive in rule. But Genghis himself was never satisfied. His heart, hardened by loss, sought no peace. His mother's suffering, his father's murder, and years of betrayal had carved vengeance into his soul. He trusted only power, and even that he feared losing. When whispers of disloyalty reached him, he crushed them without hesitation. Even his blood relatives were not safe. In 1227, during a campaign against the Western Xia, Genghis Khan's invincible reign met its end. Accounts of his death vary. Some say he fell from his horse, others that he was wounded in battle or killed by a captive princess. What is certain is that his death was kept secret for months. His generals feared the empire would collapse without him. His body was carried back to Mongolia, its location hidden forever. According to legend, every person who witnessed his funeral procession was executed to keep the burial site secret. The earth swallowed the man who had reshaped it with fire and blood. Yet his death was not an end. It was a beginning. His descendants carried on his vision with the same merciless zeal. His grandson Kublai Khan would become emperor of China, founding the Yuan dynasty. Others would march deep into Europe, reaching as far as Hungary and Poland, burning cities that still bear scars of their passage. The Mongol legacy was both creation and destruction, bridging east and west, spreading ideas and trade while leaving graveyards in their wake. When historians later tallied the cost, the numbers were staggering. By the time the Mongol conquests ended, over 40 million people had perished, nearly 1/10 of the world's population. Some regions, like Persia and northern China, took centuries to recover. Crops failed, cities vanished, and cultures were extinguished. Yet from those ashes rose a new world, connected by trade routes, unified by a single imperial will, and forever changed by one man's ambition. Even now, 8 centuries later, the legacy of Genghis Khan lingers. Genetic studies show that 1 in every 200 men alive today carries his DNA, a chilling testament to the empire he built and the lives he took. His name remains both feared and revered, a symbol of unstoppable power and unimaginable cruelty. In the end, Genghis Khan's greatest conquest was not land or gold, it was memory. His shadow stretches across time, reminding humanity of both its potential and its peril. He was the storm that reshaped the world,